Hi, let's continue to study about intestines. So there are small and large intestines, which is for absorbing water and nutrients. And also we'll discuss about fluid balance in our body. So first, let's discuss the layered structure of intestinal tube. Before we talk about it, we have to think the structure of our body, especially inside the abdominal cavity. So abdominal cavity looks like this. So there exists a peritoneum, and that's lining of this blue. And interestingly, our internal digestive organs, such as stomach, liver, pancreas, and intestines are something like this balloon. It goes inside this peritoneum. So it looks like this invagination of this visceral organ. So that structure looks like this. And if this is big, it looks like this. And that this blue lining is called serous membrane. Okay, so let's look at our intestinal tube. Because of this, you see these two linings are attached together. So that contains the structure of this intestine and its linings. So there are a few anatomical structure which I want to discuss with you. So first, because intestinal tube inside this hollow place, space is called the lumen. And second, and this blue lining, which is called a peritoneum, is a serous membrane that forming the lining of abdominal cavity here. So this blue lining is called peritoneum. So sometimes when you are giving drug or anesthesia to mouse into the abdomen, this is called intraperitoneal injection, which means you have a syringe, you poke through this peritoneum and then you inject. And that fluid will be absorbed slowly and getting into your circulation eventually. And the second is called a mesentery. If you took out of this gut, let's say during experiment, you will find that there's a thin transparent layer that composes of blood vessels inside. And that is called the mesentery. This is, you can see from this structure, and that lining put together is forming this mesentery. And mesentery is a fold of peritoneum which attaches to stomach, intestine, and this any organs inside, and the other part is inside the abdomen. So that's called the mesentery. And let's look at the inside the lumen, inside the intestine. So the intestine inside is covered, as I said, a mucus. So there's the outermost is called the mucous membrane. And right underneath this mucous membrane, the connective tissue we call lamina propria. And the finer part is connected to muscular. So that's called the muscularis mucosa. These three layers put together we call as mucosa or mucous membrane. This is a membrane that lines various cavities in the body and covers the surface of internal organ, and we call it as a mucosa. Of course, underneath the mucosa, there is a submucosa, which is also connective tissue that touches to outer muscular layer. So that is called submucosa because it's below the mucosa and connects to the muscular layer outside. So these two layers of this muscles are composed of muscles, and outer side is called a serosa or serous membrane. So this is smooth tissue membrane consisting of two layers, inner and outer layers. And so you can see these muscles, interestingly, there's two layer structure, inner and outer, we call muscularis externum. So how does that actually prepare food while performing its digestive function? And look at this. This is mouth and down here is the towards rectum. Then let's see. So first you have to have food intake, this food. You have to grab and squeeze top part, and then needs a circumferential action of this muscle, while this part has to relax so that it can push, prepare the food. And so I have to define two terms called proximal and distal. So in the body, more of a trunk or central part is called, we have called proximal, while this outer side is called distal. So in this intestine, inside part is a proximal, while towards the anus, because it expels food, the digestive stuff to outside. So that's we call distal. So the definition is important, and to push from the proximal and to distal. So you also have to, along the longitudinal direction, you have to also muscles to push like this towards the distal part. So think about grabbing food by squeezing the circumferential, and at the same time moving the material, the downsides, you have to also push outside. So that's a longitudinal. So this two muscle layer, inner and outer layer, inner is circumferential or circular muscle, outer layer is longitudinal muscle. So these are smooth muscle cells, one along the intestinal axis and the other circumferentially for mixing content and propulsion along the intestine. This is very interesting structure. And the rhythmic contraction happens quite slowly. You can see stomach for 1 minute, about up to 3 times of this squeezing happens. And in small intestine, the upper part, the duodenum, it takes about 8 to 10 times per minute. So it's like every 6-7 seconds, it will like squeeze. Okay, and these propelling movement is called, we call peristalsis. Okay, that's a muscular event that propels food through the intestine, and that is a coordinated contractions of distal part is released and proximal part is constrict. So this way food can prepare, and through this